What's up, everyone? Welcome to Level 7. It is time for another episode of the Agents of Fandom podcast. My name is TJ Zwarych, and we have a big week ahead of us for content. But to start things off, we are breaking down episodes 1 through 5 of Season 4 of The Bear, now streaming on Disney Plus internationally and Hulu in the United States. Joining me, you know him. He's been around here lots. We got Sean Mott, MetalCoreNerds. How you doing, Sean?
Doing great, man. So stoked to talk about the show with you guys. Very happy to be here. And yes, chef.
Yes, chef. And speaking of chef, we're bringing in the number one fan of The Bear, the guy who, before anybody was watching it, was telling everybody to watch it. We have Chef Carlos. How you doing, Carlos?
I'm preheated. I've got the oil simmering. I'm ready to cook, chef.
Let's dive in. And before we do, I do want to know from both of you, what you watching outside of The Bear? I know maybe with busy lives, it's tough with The Bear just dropping in a binge mode. It's tough to be watching anything else as you're trying to catch up to it. But I do want to know what you've been watching. So, Carlos, I'll start with you.
Well, I've been watching Ironheart for the 1 week that it was up, and now this will be, I guess, the day. Today is the day that they're dropping the last 3. I would love to be a story developer at Marvel because I feel like they always have the right elements and they have the right ingredients. They just don't know what course to put them in. And also just a ton of little indie movies on Amazon Prime right now. Prime, I don't know what happened to my algorithm, but it is suggesting some just banger films. I just saw this horror comedy called Cooties from a few years ago. It's got Elijah Wood, Allison Pill, Nassim Pedrad, Rainn Wilson, and I'm forgetting probably 1 or 2 others, but it's about a bunch of summer school teachers on the day where there is a zombie apocalypse, but only in prepubescent children. So the kids turn into full-on 28 Days Later style zombies. It's hilarious and really bloody and gory. It's very, very good. Highly recommend.
It sounds like an absolutely good time and something that may be worth checking out for sure. Sean, how about you? What you been watching?
Kind of a lot, to be honest. I've been catching up on some movies. I saw The Life of Chuck, the new Mike Flanagan movie based on the Stephen King short story. What a beautiful, just bold film. I know it's hard because now we're truly in summer movie season, so it's hard to be forget Jurassic World, forget Superman, forget Fantastic Four, go see this little movie about life and the beauties of it. But I will imagine it will end up on streaming, probably Hulu or something eventually. So if you don't have time to go to the theaters, when it does hit streaming, I highly recommend it. Especially if you're an MCU fan. Tom Hiddleston's in it, Karen Gillan's in it, Chiwetel Ejiofor's in it, Mark Hamill's in it, Matthew Lillard. It's an incredible movie that's just about life. I can't recommend that one highly enough. I finally watched Sinners. I know.
I want to say quick too. You can find the review of The Life of Chuck from our own Ryan Cortero up on agentsfandom.com, and the film was scored by our friends the Newton Brothers, and you can of course find my and Sean's interview with the Newton Brothers up on the Agents Fandom YouTube page and wherever you get your podcast. So when you're hitting the like button, subscribing, hitting that notification bell on today's video, which of course we ask you to do, especially hit that like button because it does help us battle that YouTube algorithm, grow the community. Go out and check our interview with the Newton Brothers, composers of The Life of Chuck, Daredevil, X-Men 97, and so much more. Continue, Sean. Sinners, what'd you think?
Well, mild spoilers for Life of Chuck. One of the Newton brothers has a pretty substantial cameo. It's not even a cameo. He's in a few scenes.
And I was
hell yeah. That's my dude. It was awesome. I popped very hard for it. So sorry if I ruined that surprise for you, but I was very excited. And I feel like only me and you and select other people would be that excited about something like that, who probably didn't even know what he looks like. So that was really cool. Sinners, I thought was unbelievable. I was worried I was going to get a little overhyped because obviously people have been, singing its praises for months at this point. The only thing I'm mad about is I didn't see this in the theater, to be honest. I watched it in my living room, which was still nothing was lost on me. I love the theatrical experience, and I'm bummed I didn't get that.
I love the theater.
I love the theater. The score is probably the coolest score I've ever heard in my entire life. Like, I'm not even joking. That's not the whole 20 minutes in, I was like, this score is so cool. It's unbelievable. The scene in the joint where Sammy's playing guitar is one of the coolest scenes I've ever seen in the movie. And it was funny because as I was watching, I was like, this is good. Like, this is really good. But I'm consciously thinking in the back of my head, ever being like, this movie's generational. It's, easily the best movie of the year. And I'm, that's in the back of my head the whole time because it can't not be. And then by the end, I was like, okay, yeah. Everyone was right. Yeah. I get it. Okay. Like, that epilogue scene ruined me. So good. Coogler is that guy. And it's so wild because I know he kind of attributed a lot of his inspiration and stuff to Nolan, which I can see too. But a lot of this movie felt very Tarantino to me, and I'm a massive Tarantino fan, and I loved seeing that in someone else's work. So that was really cool, and it's not even it just felt like a Tarantino movie, which is probably one of the biggest compliments I can ever give another director. But wow, just an incredible movie. Also way hornier than I expected it to be.
One of the biggest differences in the horny to nudity ratio in any movie I've seen, of sexy, horny, but no nudity. And you don't get very many like that with that heavy of a ratio.
True. That's a good point. Yeah. Other than that, this is a few weeks ago. I did finish my Lost. I've been talking about it on here, so I feel like I have to mention. I finished Lost. My journey has come to an end with that mysterious weirdo island, and what an incredible show that is. It just has gotten me more stoked for Damon Lindelof's Lanterns. I love Damon Lindelof. It gave me a new appreciation for The Leftovers, which is a show on HBO that he also wrote and directed. That's so good. I got to write an article kind of comparing The Lost and Leftovers in a way to each other on Collider, so you can check that out if you are a fan or never have watched either and are interested in it. Definitely check that out. And I finished Squid Game season 3 came out, binged that sucker. It's hard because I feel like Netflix just ruin shows, not as in the content, but just the release strategy makes no sense to me. And I'm sure we'll kind of talk about it with the Bear release strategy too, because it's kind of similar. But I feel like the Bear did a little bit more. In retrospect, I've seen Jeremy Allen White was on Fallon and whatever, stuff like that. But I feel like no one is talking about Squid Game season 3, which is such a bummer because I think it is a modern masterpiece of a show, and it says a lot of things that are really important and does it in a really brutal and original way. If you think about this is a completely original show, and people always complain about there's no original things, everything's an IP, everything's a remake, everything's a sequel, and it's we literally have this show right in front of us on the biggest streamer there ever has been, and no one's talking about it. And it ended really well. They stuck the landing, and they kind of helped usher in this new US version that's going to happen, that's directed by David fucking Fincher, which is crazy. So they teased a little bit for that to come at the end of it too, while still telling this complete story of what they intended to do. It's a bummer when shows like this aren't weekly to me. That show should be the most talked about thing, and it got dropped on the same week as 3 episodes of Ironheart, a full season of The Bear, and this new show on Apple TV called Smoke. 2 episodes of that dropped. And that's just TV of that week. That's insane, and it seems like a lot of stuff's getting lost in the shuffle, and that's a bummer. That's the majority of what I'm watching, I guess. I don't know. I may have missed some things, but I talked enough about what I'm watching.
I think Netflix, they kind of invented the binge drop, and it works for like, Stranger Things season 1, Squid Game season 1. But I think the modulation they need to make is, once a thing has been proven to be lightning in a bottle, release the second season week to week. Because the ability, like when Squid Game season 2 came out, I mean, I was so hyped to see it, but for whatever reason, I couldn't see it that first weekend that it dropped, and no one was talking about it. Like, it just came and went. And if it would have been a week to week thing, I feel like I understand the idea to binge drop when you don't know if something's going to be, received or not. Whether you don't want to really make a commitment for 8 weeks of episodes or whatever. But once there's a fandom for it, and like Netflix knows that Stranger Things, Squid Game, The Crown, or whatever other shows they had that were theirs. I don't know if The Crown was theirs, but they, once you know that those are your cornerstones, like, release the next seasons of those over time.
Yeah,
100%. I think it's just that Netflix doesn't care about that. Like, they don't publicize anything, because in their minds, like, this is just my read, this isn't fact, but in their minds, they know people are hitting Netflix every day when they get home from work anyways. And so the marketing is just within their own app. And it doesn't matter to them if somebody watches it in the first week, the second week, the third week, the fourth week, as long as they're watching it. And they've never really seemed to care about word of mouth in the same way that other studios and other streamers seem to. I won't go too long on what I'm watching, because it's Ironheart, which you can find our chat, myself, Damon, Brandon, and Jam for the first 3 episodes last week up on the Agency Fandom YouTube page, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm also watching Love Island. You can find my Love Island thoughts every Wednesday here on the Agents Fandom podcast and on our YouTube channel. And I haven't been catching too much else recently. Like, we haven't been watching too many movies. We did complete season 3 of Will Trent, which is on Disney Plus for us in Canada. I'm not sure if maybe that's Hulu in the States, but it's also going, I believe, like on NBC, maybe weekly, right? It had been going. And so Will Trent season 3 has been a lot of fun. If you enjoy a procedural, Will Trent is a lot of fun. It's dark. It's very dark, but it's a lot of fun as well. Outside of that, that's been pretty much it. So make sure you stay tuned, because it's not just last week we've been talking about these things. Episodes 4 to 6 of Ironheart we'll be breaking down this Friday, July 4th. We will also have our Love Island chat this Wednesday. Every week when there's no Love Island, we got you covered. We got Talk Island here on the Agents Fandom YouTube page every Wednesday. And then the Comic Corner coming every Thursday as well. So we got lots of stuff coming this week. Next week, we will be having a Superman primer. We will be having a Superman review after we see it in theaters. Plus, I will be dropping my review on agentsfandom.com next week as well. And then the week after, it is Fantastic Four time. So we got you covered all month of July long. So stay tuned, hit the like button, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Let's talk about The Bear, my friends. We have 3 seasons down before this one dropped. Before we even talk about this one, I want to know, like, when you guys started watching this show, what made you fall in love with it. Carlos, I know you have a special bond with this being in your hometown in Chicago. It's Chicago week on the Agents Fandom podcast with Ironheart and The Bear. When did you start watching the show? Why do you love it so much?
I was on it within a week of it dropping, but I don't remember if I listened to it on a podcast or someone talking about it, maybe on The Ringer or something. Andy Greenwald or something, probably talking about, how great the show was. But I was on it quickly, and I remember getting into our Agents of Fandom chat being like, guys, everyone watch The Bear. And I was like, yeah, you're old. We'll watch it some other year. And it wasn't until it started racking up a ton of acclaim. They were like, I should probably try out this Bear show. But my wife and I binged the whole thing. We one sitting. And we were struck by just the beauty of the show and how the emotional roller coaster of it, but also just we're from Chicago. I've never seen Chicago photographed in the way that Andrew Weed is photographing it. He's an amazing cinematographer. I actually went to film school with him, and he was great then. Like in film school, we were all like, if you have a movie, try to get Andrew, try to get Drew to make your movie because it'll look really pretty, even if it sucks. But we were just amazed. Like this show, like Chicago looks gorgeous, and we love Chicago. So it was very exciting for everyone to kind of see a different side of the city. And we were also just, or I was just so struck by Eben Moss-Backrack's, like his, not only his acting, because I knew about him as an actor from like as far back as like Girls, but it was when I have to check my phone to see if you're actually from Chicago because your accent is that good. And it's not like, the Bears, like it's not overdoing it. It's like, it's just really subtle. It's like, yes, that is a Chicago accent. It's the most authentic one I've ever heard. And so, yeah, I was really struck by like the love of Chicago and just how beautiful it was and how sophisticated it was.
Sean, how about you?
It was similar as in, I think it was around the first week it dropped. As you know, TJ, I'm a big TV guy and I kind of just have been for years at this point. And it's really hard because we were talking about when we were setting up this episode about how I was a little behind on the episodes because this is one of the only TV series I watch with my wife, Sam. She does not like TV. I think it's part of, in recent years, she's realized she has ADHD, and I think it's just really hard for her to get engaged into TV, just to be honest. But I think how this show grabbed her was because I think it's probably made by people with ADHD because it's very, it's like thing. It doesn't stop. It's like unrelenting of what it pulls off. In later seasons, we've seen it kind of slow down a little bit, but it still has that chaotic energy is still there. And I think that's but at this point, you're already grabbed by the characters and the story. So it's like, that's what's kind of keeping you locked in. But so we just started watching the same thing. We binged it in like 2 nights or something, maybe 3, but probably 2, and just fell in love with it, being like, wow, this show is incredible. And I know we've watched some of Shameless. There's like too many seasons at this point, but we've watched like a good chunk of the beginning of the series. And I remember watching that and seeing Lip, Jeremy Allen White's character, and being like, that dude needs to be in more things. And then now that's happening now. And I love to see that kind of thing because he's just a tremendous, amazing actor. I saw someone say that Carmy is like Lip light. And I was like, he is far more complex than Lip, at least for where I got. And I got like probably 7 or 8 seasons into Shameless. And I love Lip's character. I mean, obviously, if I was like, this guy needs to be more things, but I feel like what they're doing with Carmy, especially in this season, I think is just very profound and feels ungodly relatable to probably what a lot of people go through. But yeah, I just remember being totally enamored and enthralled and sucked in by the show, and I still continue to feel that way every time a new season comes out. I am so eager to binge it, but then once it's over, I miss it like immediately. Like I remember us watching season 3 last year, and we were on, it was like after the napkins episode, and Sam turned to me and she's like, I'm like so sad this is almost over. And like that's a testament to like a really good show that you're like so happy to dive into it, but then once it's over, you're like bummed. You're like, I just want more. And like, what better compliment can you give a series than that as soon as you're done, you want to intake it as fast as you can, but then once it's gone, you just immediately miss the world it brings you into. And I don't know. Yeah, it's just like it's in this new wave of in the last few years, just this superhuman storytelling. And I think it's one of the best of those kinds of series because I don't know. It's just like that's what the show is about. It's about the characters. It's not about the restaurant. It's not about cooking, even though those are very integral factors in the storytelling of it. It's about the characters and just showing human nature and, like purpose and passion and just these little corners it dives into about, like that napkins episode is like, I think about that episode so much. And most of that episode is literally just a conversation and just talking about, Tina just wants this job to provide for her family or wants a job to provide for her family. And seeing where she is now. And it's cool to see like that was in her journey of like finding this new passion in cooking, and then rewinding to see that this was literally a job so she could put food on her table, and it turning into something that she's become so passionate and so dedicated to is such a cool thing. And that's just like life in general. That happens all the time to people. You know, the things that you just try out because you need to, or maybe you want to, can end up being the thing. It's just a beautiful show. I can wax poetic about the corners it goes into, but it's just what they've created and what they continue to cultivate about the human condition of people. And even me not being from Chicago and only being in Chicago a few times, like on tour and stuff, like you can tell how much of a love letter this series is to Chicago. Just like the places it shows and the things it wants to highlight, I think is just so cool. And I love that creators are allowed to put that kind of stuff in there, because it's kind of non-traditional. You know, it's sometimes most of the time you're trying to make a city not look like another city. You know, you're trying to make it seem like it's something else, and then this is like unapologetically Chicago, and I think that's really, really cool. So incredible series, honestly. I love it.
I've only been to Chicago once, but luckily I had this incredible guy who toured me around the city and drove me around everywhere. So thank you, Chef Carlos, for making that happen. It definitely enhanced my trip there. But I can't remember specifically if I came in right before season 2 dropped and I binged all of season 1 in preparation for season 2, then watched it right as it came out, or if I binged all of season 1 and 2 and then watched it right before season 3 came out and then got to it then. I can't remember when I cut in, but I definitely was later. I didn't watch season 1 right when it came out. I had waited till at least season 2 came out before we started watching it, and it really blew me away with the type of storytelling it did throughout the first 2 seasons. And then season 3 didn't lose me by any means. I was still very excited for season 4. I still enjoyed it, but I felt very much like something was thoroughly missing in season 3. And I actually figured out what that was for me while I was watching season 4. And so we'll kind of get into my spoiler-free thoughts of that, and we'll start diving into that now. I'll give my spoiler-free thoughts for the season as a whole. For you guys, you can of course just do it for the first half. But what I noticed the most in season 4 is that season 3 had these really good character arcs for each of our main characters, but I thought it was just there wasn't enough overall plot for me, overall story for me. And what I'm realizing it was missing is the character of the restaurant wasn't near as prevalent in season 3 as the previous 2 seasons, and it is again in season 4. It matters to me for my enjoyment of the show to see whether it's the beef or the bear, what goal they're actively striving toward, what fire they're actively fending off. Whereas in season 3, for me, it was just like, we're broke, and just nothing really changed throughout the entirety of the season. But now in season 4, we are really seeing the character growth from the individual characters pay dividends within the restaurant, and we're seeing that restaurant growth. We're seeing the negatives, the positive, and it feels like it's a character in the show whose success you're actively rooting for. Whereas in season 3, it just felt like a location. It felt like where everybody was going to work. Whereas in season 1, 2, and 4, to me, it feels like an active character just as important as Carmy, as Sydney, as Richie, as anybody else. So that's what I've really enjoyed of season 4 so far. I'll tease, we haven't gotten to the best episode of the season yet. There is one specifically, and you can tell when it's like, most of these episodes are 40 minutes long ish, 35, and then some of them are like an hour and 10. And you know, when that happens, that's like you're getting your forks, your fishes, your your napkins, whatever it is, like the ones that people remember and go back and watch and think about. There is one of those coming up that I'm very excited to talk about as well. And so really have enjoyed season 4 so far. Or I guess I finished it. But I really did enjoy the season. I probably would have liked to. I will rewatch it because my wife Ava has not seen season 3 yet, and so we're gonna binge 3 and 4 together. Because I feel like I don't remember what happened, but I think I might have actually wrote the review for season 3 because Carlos, I think we were trying to get you screeners and then they didn't come, and so you couldn't do the binge right when it came out. So I did, and so I think that's why she didn't get to watch it either. It was like because I was like, "Hey, I'm gonna finish this in 12 hours." But we're gonna rewatch it together, and then I'm gonna get a chance to sit with season 4 a little bit more, which I'm excited about because this is also one like I watched it in a day and a half. And so I'm really excited to spend more time with each of the episodes and figure out what I missed, because there's a lot of small intricacies within the characters. You're not going to miss any big story beats if you look at your phone for a few seconds, but you might miss some really important character development that you might not have seen, of like something flashes to a photo that is very important for the scene. Like they do a lot of visual storytelling in this series, so I'm excited to go back and sit with it for a while. Sean, spoiler free, what have been your thoughts on season 4?
Yeah, I just finished episode 7 last night, and so far I'm really loving it. Season 4 feels like a mix of season 3 and season 2 for me. Whereas,
if I'm not mistaken, 7 is the one I was referring to.
Sure,
is that the one? Is that, and am I overhyping it, or would you say
that episode is utterly beautiful and amazing and does so much to fill in some kind of gaps in the lore of the Brasato family that I think is extremely important to kind of contextualize everything that's going on. And I just rewatched the first 3 seasons of The Bear leading up into season 4. And I rewatched season 2 leading into season 3. And I do think it's enhanced the viewing experience for me, because a lot of season 3, and I can totally get what you mean about the restaurant not feeling a character, because it definitely doesn't in season 3. And I think it's purposeful because everything is so, for lack of better terms, fucked that it can't be a character. And I think it's kind of like weirdly the point of it. But what they did in season 3, I think is so cool. And it's part of why season 4 works, is because instead of everything being so chaotic and in your face, it's trying to transform into this new thing that we're kind of seeing in season 4 now, of the transition from the beef to the bear, from a sandwich shop to a high-end restaurant. And
I want to, before I forget this thought, I want to interject on one thing with that specifically. It kind of felt like to me where, in episodic TV shows, and it's weird how we've talked about the binge model versus the release model. It's always been weird how the Bear releases all at once instead of episodically. I do get for certain episodes where it's like, it's very beautifully visually. There's some episodes where like throughout the series where there's like 6 lines in the whole episode. You know what I mean? So I get why maybe they didn't go 1 for 1, but even like releasing in pieces, I think could have been very like a viable strategy for this one. But when you look at it, how they do it all at once as a binge, if you kind of look at this as one big story, one big limited series, and the seasons are episodes, in an episodic show that releases week by week, in a television model, we get, people call them filler episodes. I prefer side quest episodes where it's not relevant to the main plot, but we get some of the most important character growth in these episodes because they're doing a side quest and it leads them to a big realization that helps them in their quest going forward. That's kind of almost what season 3 was. If you look at it as a whole, if it's like season 1, 2, and 4 are the main events of like the plot is being pushed forward, and season 3 is our set up side quests for everyone, because this restaurant is broken, and until each of these individual pieces figure their shit out, they're not going to be able to prop it up. And I think that was kind of what season 3 was, like you were saying, as a whole. And if you look at it in the context of one story, that season was almost its no negative context implied here, filler episode, side quest season, character growth moment.
Yeah, it's a massive setup because you see all of the threads that were that were started in season 3 play out in season 4. Like it's part of what's making season 4 so effective for me. It's because a lot of the stuff are starting to get paid off. Even a lot of the stuff that were set up in season 1 are starting to get paid off. And I think that's so cool to finally see a series that didn't rush to the conclusion. You know, they're like, and they're like little things. Like, you know, like obviously we're probably going to get into it, but like even like, you know, Carmy saying the dish is perfect to Sid and stuff like that, like stuff that's been being set up for seasons at this point. And it's not even this like this big explosion moment. It's like a line of dialogue, and I think that's so beautiful. But I do like how we kind of like season 4 is like the season of like healing, and it's affected me on like such a wildly personal level. And I think it's probably some of the stuff that's going on in my life too. And I can like so weirdly relate to it. And maybe that's why I love season 4 so much. Cause I mean, the reviews have been mostly positive. I know the Rotten Tomato score is the lowest of the season, but it's like, and I remember the discourse of season 3, and now I've kind of seen some season 3 defenders now that season 4 is coming out. But I think season 3 is probably my least favorite, even factoring in the most of season 4 I've seen. But my least favorite of like one of the best made series in recent time, and TJ and I talk about this all the time. That's not me saying anything lightly, because I think TV is at just an upper echelon of greatness, especially this year. And this season is holding up to a lot of those. Like I haven't even finished the season, and it would definitely be in the conversation of one of my favorites of the year, and that's high acclaim for sure.
It's not going to crack my top 5, and that is no shade to the Bear whatsoever. It's just because this is, in my lifetime, the best year of television that I can remember.
Yeah, it's crazy. Absolutely crazy. I don't know where it ranks. Like my top 10 is severely, it could change on the day. So I've been kind of just listing things and letting it sit, and then I kind of like look back at it, because I think I've watched over 30 series from this year alone. Not including my rewatches of The Bear. These are just series that came out this year.
And it's so tough too when you consider like favorite versus critical quality in terms of these rankings. It's like, I don't know if there's anything I've enjoyed more than, was it this year that Agatha All Along came out still? And
last year.
That was last year, but like, and like Daredevil Born Again. Like I love that stuff so much. My little nerdy comic booky brain just adores it. And that was just like, you know, not the same, like still very good, but nowhere near the same quality levels as The Bear and Severance and Paradise and The Last of Us and Andor. And just like you go on and on and on, and it just doesn't end. Incredible television this year. One little tease I'm going to give about the future is I don't feel like I can really judge the finale of season 4 until I watch a season 5. It kind of seemed like there's some very abrupt things that go on that for me felt counterintuitive to what we were building towards, but it also could just feel like another roadblock towards actualization for characters in the future. And so I feel like I can't quite judge the 4 finale until I see season 5. Carlos, give me your spoiler-free thoughts on episodes 1 to 5 so far.
And that's all I've seen, guys. I've only seen 1 to 5 because I didn't want to accidentally bring stuff in from like a future episode into this. I don't know if there is a series where I just want people to hug each other more than this. It's like, guys, if you would just hug, you would feel so much better. You know, like Carmen and
the
Richie,
entirety of the season finale is that, Carlos, is you wanting people to hug. So get ready.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I just like it's so much the feeling of like, can you guys just please just be nice to each other? Just listen and be nice. This season feels like season 3 was told to like stretch, and season 4 is like, okay, now we're moving. Now we're really cooking. And now there's all of a sudden this character growth that it really felt like we were spinning our wheels, in the mud in season 3, like certain realizations that in real time, it hasn't been that long since, from season 3 to season 4, in terms of like story time. It's been a few weeks, between the end of season 3 and the beginning of season 4. But it's like Carm has grown by leaps and bounds from season 3 to season 4. And I'm just like, there isn't again another series where I am just like so happy for people when they're doing well. Like Forks is one of my favorite episodes of television of all time, and I will go back and watch just Forks because it's and it is probably having something to do with ADHD and being like an adult diagnosed with ADHD and having to learn like that my sense of self-worth was like very much caught up in idea that like I was like a bum or I was like lazy. And it's like, no, actually you've got ADHD. And Richie is very much the same way. It's like, he's just like, he thinks he's not worth it. And he in that episode, he finds self-respect and he learns to give a shit, about himself and therefore about others. This series gives me so many of those moments, like just even little ones, even when it's just like Carm tastes a pastry and it's just like, that's great. Like stuff like that. So good. Like I love just the tiny little moments that you really do feel like you are part of this found family when you're watching. And that's how I feel throughout season 4. Spoiler free.
Very well said. Let's start diving into the spoiler side of things. I'll provide a recap of kind of the big points that happen throughout episodes 1 to 5, give you all a chance to touch on them, give your thoughts, and then we'll dive more deeply into the character arcs from the beginning of the season, but also how the character arcs from season 3 are impacting what is going on throughout season 4. And I do love that my favorite part of season 4 so far, I think, in addition to, the restaurant feels like a character again, is my favorite trope in all of television and movies is the assembling of a squad. I love when the squad gets together. It's something about, growing up watching superhero movies and comparing it to Spider-Man, the animated series, when they had their big Secret Wars moment at the end, and all my favorite animated TV shows, X-Men and Iron Man, all of a sudden started colliding and they were all together. The squad was assembled, and I always wanted my movies to do that. And so it's why I love the MCU so much. It's why the Avengers meant so much to me. Seeing them circle up as a team for the first time. I love when a squad gets together. And so getting to see all of these characters from previous seasons pop back in, join the Bear, that meant something to me. That was really, really cool. And, going back to what you said, Carlos, actually about like you're so you just want these characters to hug so bad, and you're so invested in each of their individual tasks, and you want good things for them, and you want to see their growth be rewarded. It kind of feels like so many. I'm in the same way where it's like I just want it to boil over already. I just want the water to boil over already, and somebody to break down so you guys can get to where you need to go. And it's like a show that like Ted Lasso and Shrinking that has these specific scenes that a character just breaks, and it hits me in the feels so heavily because I can point to those moments in my life where it was like, this is rock bottom. I don't know where to find happiness anywhere. I feel broken and I don't know how to get out of this hole by myself. And getting to see, I kind of feel like we're just always tiptoeing around that in this show, and it gives that same. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in like it gives me that same like, you're so close, damn it! Like it makes me want to keep watching because it's like you're almost there. You are hitting on everything you need except for just like this last step of realization, and it does it so well. And we begin season 4 with one of these really, really emotional moments from Carmy's past, where he's with the guy who has become one of my favorite actors in the last 5 years, John Bernthal, from The Bear and Punisher and King Richard and the Accountant movies and everything that I've seen this guy in. I just love John Bernthal. And we find out that Mikey actually came up with the name for the Bear. From one of Carmy's earlier conversations with him while he was still alive. He's having a great little family moment, mixing his sauce and they're spitballing. He wants to call it Mikey's because of how Carm feels about Mikey. And Mikey wants to call it the bear because he knows it's not about him, and he sees Carmy's potential, and it's so beautiful. And I do love these moments that I feel like are almost few and far between in this show sometimes, where they actually show Carmy's culinary prowess, where they actually show like he is that guy when it comes to cooking, because I feel like so often we're told, like, this show is so great at showing, not telling, but that's one of those things that I feel like we're told more than we're shown a little bit of. He is like one of the best. That's why this is supposed to work, but we just see him screwing up and just like being hard on people and creating a toxic environment that we don't see his positives as often as his negatives, I think. But because Jeremy Allen White is such a lovable actor and gives such an amazing performance that it almost doesn't matter, because you still find yourself excusing his actions all the time because you're like, oh, guy, I love you. Just get it right. Come on. But we begin with the flashback with the two of them. We flash forward to find out that Uncle Cicero and the computer are there, and they're giving them 2 months left before there's no money left, and we're going to have to shut down unless there is a major change. We can't just get better. There has to be a big old shakeup, and things have to change. And they come to the conclusion that the way to get this done is get a Michelin star. Get this a Michelin star for this restaurant. If you're sitting at home wondering if it's the same as the tire company, yes, it is. And that's the way they're going to shake things up. They have grown so much and finally have all these pieces in place. They just got to get there, and that is what they're going to do. They're bringing in some new hires. And Carlos, that's actually the first. Feel free to touch on anything I've said so far. But they bring in the new hires from the Forks episode that Richie got to meet and work with and help him grow, and that is a big change in this restaurant. And because that is your favorite episode, I would love if you chimed in and touched on kind of your reaction to seeing them come in and your thoughts on the episode that brought them in.
So love everything you just said. And I will add, computer is Brian Koppelman. Brian Koppelman wrote Rounders, Ocean's 13. He might have done a pass on Michael Clayton. He's got a cameo in Michael Clayton for sure. But he has a podcast, and he was interviewing Quentin Tarantino on his podcast, and they were talking about Quentin Tarantino as a student growing up. And I was like, man, he sounds a lot like me as a student. Like, we were just like, smart, but not really great at being students. And Brian Koppelman's like, hey, Quentin, you ever test for ADHD? I was diagnosed at, I think he was 30 or something like that. And it, changed my life. And Quentin's like, yeah, I probably have it, but I mean, I've made it this far. And listening to that was like, I wonder if I have ADHD. So whenever I see computer, I'm like, hey, you kind of led to my own Forks episode. He's got a special place in my heart. As far as this setup, the clock, the ticking clock, literally, like, the visual storytelling in this is so good. Like, okay, we know the stakes because that clock is ticking down. Like, automatically, human beings, we all understand what's going on. We bring in the cavalry here from I can't remember the name of the restaurant they closed because I didn't do a 3-season rewatch. But once they come in, you automatically all right, they're here, and they're not going to fuck this up. Like, they are about quality. They are about everything, details, and it's details that were missed in season 3. It's the little details. There's a shot in season 3, and I don't need a rewatch for this. There's a shot in season 3 where someone has a fork on the floor, and no one picks it up. And I know that shot stuck out to my wife because she had just seen a movie with Bradley Cooper about where he's like I want to say it's a food
or burnt
plate.
Toast?
Burned? Is it burned? But they talk about getting Michelin stars and how one of the tests of Michelin critics is they will put a fork on the floor and see how long it takes for someone to pick it up. And so when we saw the fork, we were just like, oh my God, pick it up. The Michelin star, they're here. And it never like comes up. But that might have been it. That might you don't know. That might have been it. And that's the whole point of the Michelin system. Is like everybody. It's like the head of service tells Richie in Forks, this is the Super Bowl for everybody. Every day is the Super Bowl. And that's how they come to work. And that's Richie reaching out to them. Is it takes humility to say, I need help. And it's also like, and you're better at this. Like, I'm still learning, you're better at this. And just that care for wanting the restaurant to do well, because his self-worth right now is very much tied up in the success of this restaurant, because it's the only thing he's ever given a shit about. Just like having this group here, just being like, please help me keep this place amazing or make it better than it is, because it matters so much to me. That's all touching. That's all just like deeply moving stuff that doesn't have to be explicitly stated. You just understand the motivations.
As someone who used to work at a restaurant too, where, you know, it was fairly, like, I don't know if high class is the right term, but like a fairly well thought of establishment, where it was not, us as workers were nowhere near as, you know, intense as they are on the Bear, but it's still like, if you see a fork on the floor, you see coloring on the floor, that's priority one. You go pick it up. Like, it doesn't matter what you're doing, you go get rid of that. So that was like a really strong visual there in that story. And I kind of buried the lead of like what got them to this point, the trigger moment of what started the clock and what made them reassess everything. And that was a review in the Chicago Tribune that was not necessarily bad, but it was that this restaurant is inconsistent. It doesn't know what it is. It's chaos in the front of the house. The back of the house is changing what it's doing every day, and it doesn't seem like they have control over the situation, which is a pretty directly accurate depiction of what we have seen in this show so far. And that's kind of what leads to all of this overhaul. And there are budget cuts that are affecting everything. Their produce is going down. They don't have money to hire new people. And so what do? They bring in a stage. And it is one of my favorite characters brought in from throughout this series. It is Luca. It is Will Poulter. Sean, what were your thoughts when you saw this guy back here joining as I still don't understand like what they mean by, oh, he's a stage, so we can afford him. Does he just mean like this is Carmy's and Marcus's friend, and so he's coming to work for almost free and help them out for a little while? Like, is that essentially
like,
what they mean?
Staging is basically like an internship, like an
I know, but what does that essentially just mean?
Literally free. Yeah.
They just called their friend and was like, hey, can you do me a favor and come work for free? And he was like, yeah. That's essentially, I feel like, what it comes down to.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's exactly what it is. And I saw someone post on Twitter, and they're like, I got the same feeling when he showed up on screen as when Andrew Garfield steps through the portal in Spider-Man No Way Home.
Yeah, for real.
Honestly, like my wife lit up so hard when he I saw this on Twitter. It did not ruin the moment for me because I didn't know when it was coming. But once it happened, I like had the biggest smile on my face. It was so cool seeing him, and like seeing Marcus light up was the greatest. I think Marcus is just the purest human on this entire series, and I just love how like down for the cause he is, and just how passionate, and seeing his skills continue to cultivate has been such a cool thing. But yeah, seeing Luca come in was beautiful and awesome, and seeing Sid like react to it and be like, what, like, you know, we definitely can't afford you, right? Like, it's so great. And like, it all made sense when he's like, Marcus like, I need firepower, and then the Carm's like, let me think on that. I was like, oh, okay, it's Luca for sure. That's what we're going to. So it's awesome, and it all makes sense, and it's just it's so great because, you know, some parts of the show can feel so random at points because it kind of like things just kind of come and go sometimes, but moments like this like kind of prove that like, no, they aren't random. They're put there for a reason to come back eventually in some way, shape, or form. But obviously, like, Luca's such an important person to Carmy anyway, and was obviously very integral to Marcus's growth as a chef in general. But just like some of the Luca thing is one of the best examples I can give of the show, of showing, not telling, of him being like, I thought I was the best until I worked with the best, and I just tried to keep up with him to make himself better. And they never explicitly say it's Carmy, like, ever, but they show you. through a picture, through the season 3 premiere, where that's like one of the episodes you talked about, where there's like literally like 6 lines of dialogue. But what that episode does is like one of the craziest things I've ever seen a series do, especially with like a season premiere of it just like filling in so much information by literally just showing it to you. Don't need to get in the episode because I can probably talk about it for way too long. But yeah, seeing Luca come back was amazing, and bringing all the people that from the now the restaurant that now closed that Carmy worked at, that
ever
previously and the amazing culmination for Richie's character and Forks happened at Ever and everything. So, and the crazy moment from last season with Carmy facing his utter demons, literally in the face. It was cool to see them come back, and it makes sense. Like, obviously they don't have a job anymore, and I'm sure they were more than happy to help out their friend and have a new job, at least for 2 months, I guess, or depending on what happens, but yeah, like you said, it's like and again, it kind of harkens back to like the season 3 talkings of like that was such a necessary season to kind of prove things, to make things work in season 4. It always blows my mind when people are like, oh, I hated the season, but the finale was good. And I'm like, do you realize that the finale can't be good without the building that happens up to it? Like, even if you didn't like some of the parts, but like that stuff is integral to make that part work. I don't know. I feel like people always miss that piece. It's so strange to me. It doesn't make any sense to me. But that's kind of the same for this. Like season 4 and season 3 ended in a to be continued. It was very much obviously a setup of sorts. And but like I said, it's cool to see that stuff being paid off. I don't know. I feel like a lot of people should revisit season 3 after season 4. I feel like people might find a higher appreciation for it, I think. Because season 4 is really kind of just like doubling down on what season 3 was doing. Just it's more of the conclusion than the setup, So the conclusion always seems more satisfying than the setup sometimes. So I can see that too. But yeah, very Avengers Assemble kind of moment with everyone coming together for sure.
Luca definitely should have said on your left when he came through. Like, he definitely should have entered the room that way and just said, because if you're going to get firepower, like, you can do worse than Adam Warlock, like you can. When Will Poulter was here for the first time, so that might have been season 3 actually, that he was in town, because I don't think they shot his scenes here in season 2.
Well, no, what's his name? Luca and Carmy worked together in Chicago before they ever worked in Europe. So he would have been there earlier, Carlos.
Yeah. Well, when the actor Will Poulter was here, he actually, a buddy of mine owns oh my God, words, Carlos. My buddy owns a thrift shop. He owns like a vintage store, and Will Poulter was in town and stopped in, and they totally rang him up and talked to him, and then afterwards were like, he looked familiar. And it's he should. It's Will Poulter. But yeah, shout out Layers Chicago, vintage shop in Wicker Park, where the celebrities hang. Actually, he's not the only one.
Will Poulter, of course, with one of the biggest glow ups in Hollywood history going from a young adult who was incredibly funny looking to one of the most handsome men in all of Hollywood. So shout out to Will Poulter. But like you said, we get the setups in season 3 that really culminate in season 4. And I feel like we kind of get Carmy in season 4 having realizations of the things he needs to do better. And in season 3, and then in 4, he's actually starting to do them better. So the big plot point involving him in the first 5 episodes is that he finally decides, screw it, let's just give a set menu. We're not going to change this thing every day and adjust it and have everybody have to relearn everything. We are just going to go with our greatest hits, our best pieces, and that is what will become of the menu. And one of the things I think this show does really cool, and I find it very meta, is how as I feel like Sydney's importance in the show and the restaurant as a whole grows as they and the people in the show and the world has realized how more and more an incredibly talented Ayo Edebiri is. And it's just very much as her stardom grows and as her talent grows, so does her role within the restaurant Sydney and Io kind of mirroring each other in that way. And she has a tough go this season as she is really starting to self-actualize within the kitchen. She is struggling back and forth, trying to figure out, do I go with Shapiro to this new and start this new restaurant? Do I stay here at the Bear where it is not a good environment? It is not an easy place to work, but it's home and I care about it. And this 5-episode stretch, Carlos, it kind of culminates with her seemingly making a decision, or at least close to, I'm going to go with Shapiro and I'm going to leave the Bear. And then her dad has a freaking heart attack. Talk to me about Sydney's arc throughout this season. I think she is the most important character in this show. It wasn't maybe at the beginning, but has become the most important character in this show. Whereas it seemed to initially focus on the relationship between Richie and Carmy. Now it's very much like Sydney is the one taking the lead while Richie and Carmy are kind of almost secondary main characters.
So I think Sydney has been the second lead since the beginning. Yeah. Like she is her entryway into this world. She's the newcomer to the family, and so are we. And so she's learning their idiosyncrasies as we are. But this season in particular, her arc, her growth to the point where, again, with the visual storytelling, with the timers, there are these timers and you've got to get the meal out the course has to be out in 3 minutes. And Carm's like, I couldn't get this course out in 3 minutes. Don't worry about it. And then he sees Sydney did it in 2 minutes and 30 seconds or whatever. It almost feels like that moment that Luca's talking about where he's like, I thought I was the best and then I cooked with the best. Like he might be realizing like, I may not, like figure like James Worthy on the Tar Heels, like in North Carolina. It's like, I'm the best. I'm going to be the number one pick. This freshman, oh, damn it. That freshman is pretty good. And the freshman is Michael Jordan for all you non-Chicagoans. That feels like what Carm might be going through, through Sydney and maybe is okay with it, right? Like is maybe like, yeah, maybe she is supposed to be better than me. Sydney going through the Shapiro, it's like a culinary love triangle. It really does feel like a will they, won't they romantic comedy formula, but with professional, stakes. What I love though, is that she's deciding, and one of them is a purely professional and not happiness, but peace. Like she will be more at peace if she goes with, yeah, right. Like it will be more peaceful. However, when she's there with, and kind of there to tell Carmy, like, hey, I think I might actually, you can kind of see like this is about to be the breakup, is when Sugar shows up with the baby. And now it's like, oh, it's family, Sugar and the baby. And then she gets the call about her dad. Like all of a sudden it's like this, and I don't know where this goes from here. I don't know, but what I read that as was like, and here are 2 reasons why these people are more important to you than coworkers. Like this is a family and you chose them, you found them, but you also kind of can't choose them. Like you can't make Shapiro your family if he's just not that guy. If it just, he's great, but he's just kind of not vibing with you. He's not really your people, not your tribe. Sydney has found her tribe with these people, even though they are so different than her. They're wired the same inside.
I just rewatched Moneyball a couple days ago, and so all I can hear in my head is Brad Pitt going, "Get Shapiro on the phone." Every time we're talking about this guy, because they have the same last name as the at the time Cleveland general manager that they were referring to in that one. Sean, what has been your thoughts on Sydney's arc throughout season 4? I'm not even going to say anything because I feel like Carlo put that so eloquently that I'm just going to put it all on you.
Yeah, that was a great way to spell it out. I loved that the episode 4, which is funny. You talked about how like Io's kind of like Stars Rising. She co-wrote that with the actor who plays Marcus, which I thought was super cool. And then she directed Napkins in last season. So to see her like actual physical involvement in the show has grown, other than just acting, I think is really cool. And just
in the like as it rises in the restaurant, it rises in the show too, and it's a really cool mimicry.
Cool. Yeah, I love the way you pointed that out. It's so cool. And I mean, that episode where it's like, pretty much literally just her getting her hair done, but it filled in so much contextually about her past, her life. And I loved her explaining the situation of the restaurants. Like, I need to choose between 2 sleepovers, and her trying to explain it in a sleepover level. Like the whole, like, oh, one has unlimited pizza. And the kid's like, well, yeah, go with the pizza. What are you talking about? It's like, that's so funny. And that's such a cool way to kind of break something down that's so important on such like a fucking like small, childlike level. I thought that was so cool. But you see how these people are affected in a personal way too. You've seen it with Richie. Obviously, we've seen it with Carmy throughout the seasons of, like when he first meets up with Claire, she's like, how are you doing? And he's like, I don't know. Like, that should not be an answer. Like that's an awful, terrible answer. But like this profession, and it goes for a lot of professions too. It's you get so hyper obsessed and sucked into it that's like your personal life suffers from it. And there was it's I think she's realizing she doesn't want to be how Carmy became. Like, she can still be great, but still nourish the things outside of her job and her passion too. And it's been very highlighted. I feel like there's 2 conversations that were said to Carmy specifically, that when he calls Natalie and to be like, hey, I haven't seen the baby, I'm sorry. And she's like, so like, who is this person? What did you do with Carmy? Like, what are you talking about? And she says something of like, how when he left for New York, he had such a spark and a love. And it's like, it's okay if you fell out of love with the thing that you're great at, because it means you had the capacity to love like that for something. And it's okay if that goes away. And then there's that conversation in episode 5 with Tina where she's like, I'm going to say something to you. You're the shit. Like, you're incredible. You don't need to prove anything to anybody. I know you feel like you need to, but you don't need to. And I feel like that was a really big catalyst, obviously, because she's bringing up how they're very hurting on funds. Hey, let's set a menu. It would make things so much easier. She's like, I'm not going to tell you how you do your job, but I'm the one who goes picks up the food every day. This will make things easier. And he's like, you're totally right. And I feel like those 2 people who are obviously have been very integral to his life, saying those very important things to him were.
If I could add one more conversation,
for sure.
The first conversation, Carmy with his brother, where he's talking about how the rental car business, didn't go well, and he just goes, "Did you give a shit? Like, did you even care about the rental cars?" And his brother's like, "No." That informs those conversations. He didn't give a shit about that thing, and maybe it fails because of that, but it definitely frees you to go do a thing. Something else, something you give a shit about. You don't have that much. It's like a clock ticking in the kitchen. You don't have that much time here on Earth. Do something you give a shit about is kind of the, what I'm taking away from that.
Yeah, for sure. And I love that it's saying you can take your time to do that thing you give a shit about. But if there's a time where you don't love it like you used to, you can let go of it too. I feel like that's so important. And that's something I feel like in anything, I haven't really heard people talk about it. And it's really made me think about stuff in my life. Like that line has like been stuck in my brain since I watched it like 2 days ago, that conversation in particular. But yeah, seeing Sid, and I'm, like I said, I'm a few episodes ahead. I have not finished it, so I don't know where it goes, but I'm so stressed out about this because obviously there's a new agreement too that Carmy had revised. Obviously seems like it's something in Sid's favor. We don't know what it is. And I'm so stressed out about, and like TJ said, it kind of seems like she went and signed. She called, Shapiro and was like, "Hey, let's go finish the paperwork." But we don't know if that paperwork was finished. And I'm like, "Did you sign the paperwork?" I don't know, and it's stressing me out. To be honest, it's really stressing me out.
I need like Carmy like banging on the church doors, like, don't marry him. Like that's basically what we're getting at.
We kind of naturally transitioned into Carmy's arc this season, and so I want to keep it there and ask both of you the question: and so Carlos, I'll throw it to you first. Is Carmy beginning to lose his passion for the bear, for cooking, as he realizes that, like, I've been doing this wrong, and the things that are the best about this place are not the things that I've been putting in place? It's what Tina said. It is what Sydney is bringing to the table every day. It is Marcus becoming a master of his craft. Is he losing that passion? Or is he losing the obsession, where we have always seen him as this character with the biggest chip on his shoulder? I have to do everything myself because I've never had any support from my parents. I have to do everything perfect in this restaurant because standards are sky high, and I need to prove that I can do it. I'm going to start this restaurant, and I'm going to prove that I can save it, and I am going to do it myself. And he is finally realizing, I can let these other people in. It doesn't take anything away from who I am, take any of my self-worth away if I ask for help and I let these other people in. Is he losing his passion, or is he just becoming more mentally healthy with a better work-life balance?
Okay, so what I think we need to go back and look at that Tribune review, right? And it's talking about how it's very fancy and the food looks great, but it's all sort of confused and it doesn't really have a direction. And I think, I mean, this is kind of, English 101. This is the metaphor, right? Carmy is doing this really on the surface. It's very impressive stuff, but it's motivated by the wrong things. He is switching up the menu every day out of a sense of almost insecurity than out of a confidence, right? He's doing it because he needs to prove to someone that he's worth something, because he clearly doesn't feel like he is, and doesn't feel like he's worthy of love, doesn't feel like, and all of that. And we've seen his toxic upbringing. We've seen, we've seen all of it. We've seen that he was, basically emotionally abused when he entered the culinary world. And so he's broken. And I do think that it's possible that the passion isn't there anymore, but only because his passion for everything is kind of gone. And that's what scared him so much with Claire. Was like, I was passionate about something, but it was you. It wasn't like anything else going on in my life. I think he's broken, and I think the passion won't be there again until he's fixed, until he's healed. And what my wife and I were noticing was, like, there are these moments of he's realizing Sydney is maybe better than I am. Like, she's definitely a world-class talent that Carmy is recognizing. Marcus, like, when he has, when he's finally, like, Marcus is at a point where even Luca's like, fuck you. Like, when he eats his, like, pastry, because it's like, damn, that's as good as anything I can make, maybe better. Like, he is elevating everyone else. And I think he might be reigniting a passion that even maybe he doesn't even realize yet, in bringing out the greatness in others as well. And so he doesn't need to do it alone, and he will find that passion with family, because that's kind of what he's missing. It's almost like like Tony Soprano and the Ducks being a metaphor for the family. Like, it's like that. Like, it's Carmy needs a family. That's why they sit down for family, right? Like, before they open, he needs a family, but his families have always been so toxic. And now that he's got one that's working, it's him that's toxic. It's he that is toxic. And so the balance has to be right. And once the balance is right, I'm sure the passion for cooking, the joy of it, will be back. It's just, he's not happy right now.
Sean, what are your thoughts on Carmy's growth, not just from this season, but the past 2 seasons, and how we're seeing it directly affect his decisions this season?
Yeah, I think an interesting thing about season 3 is that it really went back and studied his upbringing professionally, and it really examined, because he had 2 kind of leaders.
Jeff Winger being an absolute asshole.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And then the head chef at Ever being this incredible, calm, like nourishing talent. And we even saw I can't remember what other, but it was some other thing where he was like helping pick stuff, and it seemed like kind of like this communal kind of cooking thing. I don't think they ever really explained what it was. He may have said it in an offline and I'm just missing it, but every time they showed him in that environment, you see him smiling, which has been a thing you've seen him do a lot in season 4 too, is seeing Carmy actually smile, which is something very void in season 3. And it's exactly what Carlos said. He's like finding happiness in life again. Seeing his niece, seeing the people he brought under his wing flourish now under his steward, finally taking in other considerations from other people, him apologizing, healing, all that stuff. And I don't think the passion is necessarily gone. I think it's just being transferred to something else. And I think that's the thing with passion and with jobs and or even like hobbies or side hustles, is sometimes you do just, it's like that conversation with sugar. Like sometimes you fall out of love of stuff that you've loved, you do that feels so integral to your life. And I think it's more of growth than losing passion. Him being like, I don't need this constant thing to prove anything to anyone anymore. I can go do something else, like I can finally focus on living a life. Because I think that's one thing he never did. Like he kind of, it's almost like obviously he's incredible at this, but it was almost kind of a massive escape from him, from his insanely depressing, problematic, traumatic upbringing. Like that was his release, was just leaving, just straight up going across the country or halfway across the country to be like, yeah, I'm going to work at the best restaurant in the world, but I'm also going to be away from my crazy ass family. And that's also kind of part of, I think, why there's this need for him to prove something constantly to himself, is because he grew up in an environment where he never really got acknowledgement for anything. Like he was always seeking constant approval from his brother, constant approval from his mother. His dad left, didn't even really know his dad. So he's just constantly seeking for that kind of validation in his life. And, like the restaurants he worked at before kind of gave him that. And now, like, even we saw in season 1, he's trying to prove himself to these people who are stuck in their ways and think they know everything is right, even though the house is falling apart. But they're like, you can't mess with us. Just because you're some fancy restaurant guy doesn't mean you know how to run a sandwich shop, blah, blah, blah. And now we're seeing all the growth in that too, of people like evolving into this thing. And it's so crazy to see this chaotic sandwich shop turn into this kind of like tranquil, elegant dining experience. Now at this point, we're seeing that happen in the characters too. And I think Carmy's obviously at the forefront. He's kind of the main character, with Sid now coming in as definitely like, 1.5, for sure. But yeah, seeing him just be able to, I think it's like a moment of acceptance of being like, this doesn't have to be my life. There is other things that can happen that can bring me happiness, bring me joy. And even though he's kind of crippled with social anxieties and failures and guilt, he's finding his way through that finally. And I think it's a really beautiful thing. And I love that they're exploring that pretty intensely, without it being too over the top. So yeah, it's really good stuff what they're doing in Carmy this season. Obviously very much needed after a season 3 of him kind of putting his foot down and being like, I know what's best. And without saying fuck you, but kind of was saying fuck you to everyone in a way, him being like, I want to be better, but not really being better. And now we're finally seeing that for real, and really bringing in collaboration and teamwork and what you guys both said, just kind of like, I can do this in a team instead of trying to do it all on your own, for sure. There's
this moment where Carmy, it's that opening montage, I believe, where Sydney is cooking by herself, and Carm comes and tastes it and is like, that's perfect. Like, that's amazing. Whatever the superlative is, I think that's perfect.
That's perfect.
And
yeah.
it doesn't feel any, like Sydney kind of just like, that was all that was, like he said that was perfect. And you don't feel like she's gotten a wave of endorphins from him, from Carm, her idol, saying your food is perfect. And I think that speaks to like, it's not going to come from without, it's going to come from within. Like your worth comes from within you, not from what other people think about what you're doing, which is ironic because the whole season is shaped around a critic's review. But but I mean, it is very much like she's not going to receive that either. Either the lesson there is that the wins don't feel as good as the losses feel bad, or the lesson is it's your sense of satisfaction is not going to come from how much Carm enjoys your food. Because even when he says it's perfect, that didn't really affect you the way you thought it was going to.
I think it's really cool how we talk about how Carmy has this no man is an island-esque story going through in season 4, that even though Carmy and Richie's stories and journeys are totally different, basically polar opposites, where you have Carmy, the creative genius, and Richie, the down on his luck, I'm not good at anything, trying to find my passion kind of guy. They have the same thematically, the same journey of they both feel so alone, and they're both just trying to find connection and feel like they have a family, because for both of them, the only person in their lives, in their entire lives, that they've ever had the camaraderie and the connection with, where they actually feel like I can be supported by this person without feeling like I'm judged, isn't in their lives anymore. It was Mikey. It was that for both of them in different ways, but he was that for both of them. And because of that, they're just lacking that connection. And I think it kind of shows how patriarchy sucks for everybody. There's a reason we got to get rid of this shit. It's not like it's sitting here being good for in all reasons for the men either. These are dudes who do not know how to understand their emotions, ask for help, feel like if they do ask for help, they're not failures. And that is something that both of them are trying to get through this episode. Whereas Richie, we are seeing him the opposite of Carmy, kind of, whereas Carmy is finally starting to figure out his personal shit. And he doesn't really he's realizing that the restaurant there, people are he's been bringing it down while he figures out his real life traumas. Richie is all scattered all over the place in real life as he's finally really getting a hang of this restaurant side of thing. I'll throw it to you first, Sean, on this one. What are your thoughts on how Richie's story has progressed in season 4?
It's been cool to see him kind of value perspective from people he trusts, especially when you come from where he came, in season 1, or he wasn't listening to anyone say anything ever. And now he's kind of, has this kind of very healthy dialogue with his ex. And him talking to Jess and being like, hey, this thing happened with the stepfather, blah, blah, blah. And she kind of gives him this new perspective. And even when they first come to work there and she's like, oh, who made that list? And he's like, yeah, it's stupid. He's like, oh, Carmy made it. That's actually a really smart thing to do. And he's like, oh, he's kind of offended by it, but then he kind of like really is kind of sinking in like, oh, it probably was a smart thing to do. The way he went about it, probably not the right way, but setting a kind of guideline is good in any kind of business and structure and everything like that. So it's been cool to finally see him get these new perspectives and him be accepting towards them. There is a very beautiful thing that happens in a few episodes from now with him. But the main thing is, and they teased it, and I was so mad they teased it, is him and Carmy just got to have a conversation. They're both obviously still very upset with each other. And that's like kind of the one thing Carmy hasn't mended yet in the season. Like obviously he's, shown Sydney that he is willing to change and is changing, at least making very big steps towards it. You know, his conversations with Natalie have been, you know, very kind of therapeutic, probably on a family perspective, of being like, you know, he had that conversation with Claire, even though it probably didn't go as well as he wanted it to, but it went probably better than most of us thought it was going to happen as a viewer and a fan of the show. And yeah, that conversation needs to happen. And I'm very looking forward to that conversation, because I feel like it's going to be very cathartic for everyone involved, including the characters, which again speaks to what this show does and how invested and you know, intertwined we are with these relationships in this show. And they really just need to hash it out, you know, and I think that's part of the problem, you know, like Richie keeps bringing up, you know, like the front end feels disconnected from the kitchen. And I think that disconnection is from those two. That's the biggest thing. You know, these people have been in each other's lives, you know, their whole lives, and they said some really messed up stuff to each other, and that happens in life sometimes. You know, you just gotta be willing to forgive and be better. And that's the big thing. I mean, that's been the whole kind of bottom line of this season, is that no matter what happens and what is said and what is done, if you're willing to work towards being better, things can be forgiven. Apologies are only as good as, you know, the actions after that apology. And it seems like Carmy's stepping it up for a lot of people, you know, even seeing how attentive he was at the end of episode 5. You know, we learned his father has a heart attack, and he's like right there, like, I'm going to go with you. I got you. And even though she's like, no, I feel like she felt very, you know, like loved in that moment, to be like, he does have my back. Like, this is my family, kind of like what TJ was alluding to earlier about the found family of this restaurant and everything. So yeah, but it's like, I feel like Richie needs that. And he has been more receptive and more open. Like, his character arc is one of my favorites in like media. Probably like Carlos talked about Forks. Like, Forks is incredible. You know, like, everyone wax poetic about fishes, but the fishes Forks 1-2 punch is probably the best, like, 2 episode stretch of a series I think I can ever think of, because they do marry each other so well in what they are telling. And obviously that was done on purpose. But it's nice to see. And there is like a very light bulb moment for him in a few episodes too that I absolutely adored. It almost is Forks like in a way. Just seeing a character realize something about themselves felt beautiful and so earned and nice. I can't wait for Carlos to get to it, to be honest. I hope we're not overhyping this episode, but it is truly like I don't know, every season of this show has 1 or 2 episodes like that where you're like, wow, they feel like time capsules from this world that this show has created, and they feel like mini movies. Like, they really do. They feel like they just take a moment in time and really just dig so deep into it in a way I feel like only the show can do. But yeah, I love Richie. I think he's so great. And every episode I watch, I've already been stoked. It's like obviously like a side tangent, but him being cast as Ben Grimm, I think, is like one of the coolest comic book castings in recent years. And just every day I get more stoked about it, because it's like it's so perfect. Like, he is so perfect for that character. And I feel like this was like, you know, his like this was his like leading up to something like that, even though I don't think he'll probably get to the depths of, maybe he will, I don't know, but I don't think maybe he will be able to dive as deep as he has with Richie in Ben Grimm, but maybe I'm wrong. But yeah, Richie's great, especially looking like I said, looking back from season 1 on. What a wild journey that is. Completely different people at this point, you know.
Although the best Richie moment of any episode is him shooting a gun in the air and saying, "All right, you incel Snyder cut motherfuckers." Yeah. Like, that's the best. But okay, I digress. Carry on.
Insane. Very insane moment.
Carlos, thoughts? What are your thoughts on his arc this season? Where do you see the same? Like, are you picking up the same through lines where it's like this is a totally different situation, but him and Carmy are kind of going through the same thing?
I think that both he and Carmy are they're trying to figure out kind of like who they are when they're not reflected in the light of Mikey. Like, and it just feels like there's a hole there. Like there is just a gaping black hole between them, and it's Mikey. And Richie was someone different when Mikey was around. Carmy was someone different when Mikey was around. When you take Mikey out of that ecosystem, they don't really know how to relate to each other, but they do know that they love each other. They do know that they're family. So they will sit down with each other and stare instead of having a conversation. But, you know, like it's not to that point where they, you know, they can't be around each other. I think there's a moment where Richie is like, hey, I want to apologize. I fucked up. I wasn't paying attention to the details out there. I missed the Michelin guy or the Tribune guy when he was here to do the review. That was on me. But while he's apologizing, Carmy cuts him off to, you know, like, no, it wasn't you. It was me. It wasn't you. And like, and they can't even agree on whose fault it is. You know, like it's just so much like you just need to get your wavelengths, you know, synchronized here because you guys love each other so much. It's so clear. You guys love each other so much and you need each other because you both miss Mikey so much, but there's a piece of him in the other person. Like it's like this, it really is like playing with tension in a way that you would normally see in other narratives. Is like, usually it's sexual tension. This is like, it's playing with that exact same mechanism, but it's just like catharsis tension. I just need you guys to be cool with each other, please. And like, I really feel like everyone else in the room when they're yelling at each other, like my childhood, you know, my child of divorce self comes out like, please just be, can you just be pleasant, please? Can we get through Christmas? Anyways.
Any of these other character stories that, I mean, it doesn't have to be one, you can pick apart multiple pieces if you want to, but you know, Natalie. Marcus is selling his house. Shug had a baby. Tina is trying to get this 3-minute thing down. Ebraheim is trying to make sure that window is making this company as much money as possible. The facts are being the facts. Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Any standouts, Carlos, I'll throw to you first, that you want to point out from this season so far?
I think Ebraheim's story is so good. Like the fact that we're learning, like I'm learning about these characters that I thought were kind of almost, like glorified extras in season 1, but now they're like, it's like, no, you're kind of maybe a distant cousin, but you are still family. And Ebraheim, like learning, trying to get his business model going with Rob Reiner of all people.
Yeah, that was so funny.
But also just kind of like, actually his business model is amazing and might actually be able to be taken to scale. Like he might be, TJ, when you were here, I took you to Portillo's. Portillo's is now a national chain. Like the fact that Ebraheim's like on the verge of, you could maybe take this national, you could be big with this. That I love that. I also am digging it's like a much more subtle subplot of a guy whose name I don't remember, learning about wine and like what wines to pair. And like, he's picking it up, like he's learning on the job. And actually when he goes to meet with the wine expert, that woman like hosted a show in Chicago. Like she hosted a show called Check Please, which was like a restaurant review show here on PBS in Chicago. And so I was like, oh my God, it's that lady. I'm digging I can't remember her name, but I am digging their growth. Cause I do want to see, like in my head, my theory of like how this show ends is that the restaurant is going to have to marry the beef and the bear. And I actually think it's going to be called The Beef and the Bear. I think that's what they're going to call that restaurant at the end. Like The Girl and the Goat here in Chicago. But I do think they're going to have to kind of, the beef is who they are. And it is also more successful at this point. And I do think they're going to have to kind of bring in some of that more rather than keeping it in the back of the house. It's going to have to kind of be more main attraction by the end of the series. That's my theory corner.
How about you, Sean? Anything else that stands out from what we've seen in season 4 so far you want to address?
Yeah, mostly it's been the Ebra storyline too. I feel like what a cool thing, especially kind of seeing like him and Tina's arcs kind of splintering off and her really diving into like the culinary stuff, really accepting like this new position she's getting and really trying to take in everything she's got and feeling this like wild sense of community, even though she's with like her going to karaoke night with all the students that are her like half her age. I felt like was such a full circle moment for her as a character, and I feel like we're finally getting something like that for Ebra. Like they did bring him back in after he kind of like ditched out, and even that moment between him and Carm where he's like, yeah, no one like asked about me, and Carm being like, that's my bad. And he's like, it's also my bad too for just stop going and not reaching out, like again, it's a communication thing. So that was a nice conversation for one, even though if it was a really small one. I felt so emotional hearing it, especially being like, no one reached out to me. I was like, geez, man, God, that's heartbreaking. But seeing him like really come into his own and finding this like knack for numbers and business, I was like, this is cool. I love this little side plot going on here. So yeah, that's been definitely my favorite of the side. Yeah, and the Gary the wine stuff too, and how they're kind of making fun of wine. I don't drink or do anything, but I still find it funny because I've heard people talk about like like wine tasting and how silly it is because it's like they all kind of taste the same, and they're kind of really kind of exploring that trope pretty like obviously. Man. Yeah, that's been cool too, and it's like they had that nice moment of him where it's where Teddy Fack went up to him and was like, "Yo, I remember when you were a baseball player." Just like like again, the show does such like a great thing of these like little moments that add so much to these characters and so much color and so much like backstory without giving this crazy like like insane flashback where it fleshes out their origin or something. They just do it with these little lines and but yeah, Eber's definitely been my favorite kind of like non-main player side story for this season. Tina had like last season was just utterly beautiful, and seeing her continue to try and step up and perfect her craft this season has been cool too. But her moment to shine was definitely last season, and she shined for sure. But yeah, I mean that's like I'm excited. I have 3 episodes left to finish it, and excited yet sad to finish it. And I'm very curious if season 5 happens. A lot of people have said it felt like it seems like you do not feel the same way, but a lot of people have said if this is the end of the series, it feels like a pretty good conclusion. But
I couldn't disagree more. I feel like they left it very open-ended that they need another season.
Okay.
Marcus gets stuck in the multiverse and they have to go get him.
That's just what I've seen. But I think if there is a season 5, this will be the first season where it doesn't come out next year. Obviously, everyone is kind of busy in this series, and usually we already know when they're filming, and there's already been reports that if it gets greenlit for a season 5, everyone is contracted to do so. But the creator, Christopher Storer, only has like ideas in place. He doesn't have a full script or anything. So I feel like if there is a season 5, that this might be the first one we have to wait a little bit for.
I will say they shoot very quickly here.
For sure.
When they're here for like 4 weeks and out. It's like, you shot 10 episodes? How did you do that? Yeah, they're very quick when they're here.
So it might not be as long as some stuff, but like the fact that they don't already have, like usually they're shooting like right after the season is done, kind of like how Daredevil Born Again was happening. Usually it's like they're right back in. So we'll see. Like obviously everyone's schedule is a lot different than it was in years prior. One may be shooting Avengers movies back to back right now. So we'll see how that goes.
Another one's Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah. I mean that's already filmed, but he's gonna have a lot of
it's just been it's a lot going on for these guys. I want to before we get out of here play a little game of will they, won't they, and I want to ask both of your opinions on some ships people on the internet have in this show, and if you think either not by the end of the season, but let's say the end of the series, assuming it will continue in some capacity, do you think these two characters will end up together? Some of them I like, some of them I absolutely hate and don't understand how people see these two characters with a romantic connection. But alas, let us start. Carlos, do you think Carmy and Claire Bear will end up together when this series is over?
Yes. Yeah, I think that's Lock it down.
Sean?
I also think yes. I don't think they should, but I think yes.
So let's make that let's add a second part to that question. Do you think they should, and do you think they will? Next, the one I think absolutely should not and won't. Carmy and Sydney.
No, there's never been a romantic thing in that ever.
Thank you.
Get out of here.
Internet's great.
There's even a moment in the where she's getting her hair done episode where like the niece is like, oh, so it's like, no, it is not like that at all. Like,
yeah,
it was a meta moment.
Couldn't agree more. Sydney and Marcus.
Maybe, but I think also no.
I think that one, I think that's possible. I think that's very possible.
I like this one a little bit more personally. Sydney and Luca.
I saw this rumbling as well. I wouldn't hate it. I liked their back and forth.
I like their chemistry a lot.
Yeah,
they're very.
I'd be down with
flirty.
that.
Yeah. But I don't think Luca stays in Chicago, and therefore I don't think they end up together.
Fair. Who is the next one I wanted to ask? All right, I forget, so I'm just going to go to my final one, and that is Richie and Jess.
Yes, for the love of God, please.
Yeah. Come on. Yeah. What are we doing?
I need that too. I absolutely need that too. All right, that'll do it for our bear breakdown for this week. We will be back next week talking about episodes 6 through 10. And of course, we're going to be talking Ironheart later this week, Love Island on Wednesday, the Comic Corner on Thursday. We're a week away from Superman. We are 2 weeks away from the Fantastic Four. So make sure you subscribe to the Agents Fandom wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. Hit the like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of our shows. Help us combat that YouTube algorithm and help us build this community. All we ask is you hit the like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell, follow the Agents of Fandom on socials at Agents Fandom on TikTok and Twitter, Agents of Fandom everywhere else. Sean, where can people find you on socials? And do you have any fun articles coming up?
At MetalCoreNerds, wherever you are on the socials. And I have a review for The Sandman coming out for Agents of Fandom the 3rd at 3 in the morning Eastern because Netflix. And I have some cool, just random Collider articles. You can go search my name on Collider. I write a lot there. I write at least 10 articles a month. So about a myriad of things. So go check it out. I can't remember any specific right now.
Carlos, same to you. Do you have any socials you want people to follow you on? And do you have any ideas cooking for when you get home from family vacation about how you might get into the kitchen and start chefing it up?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at Carlos Freytes Jr. Look for it. I'm there. I'm not going to spell it. Also, yeah, I might write confused or passive aggressive restaurant critiques for the Chicago Tribune. I don't know. I might do that. I don't know. But yeah, I'm going to Puerto Rico for a week, and when I come back, hopefully the ideas are flowing. I would have loved screeners for the Bear. Disney. It would have been great. You see how I speak on the fly. Imagine what I could have written. But it was not to be. Hopefully there's more ideas coming soon. But life is lifing, as always.
Yeah, it was so weird. After that Chicago Tribune review for the restaurant, FX essentially said, no one will be reviewing this show. I believe, like, for the incredibly select few who actually did get screeners as well. The review embargo was like 6 hours after the show released.
I had a feeling
so, like,
something like that.
Super weird.
People could, like, after, not before, after. So, like, people who got screeners couldn't talk about the show until after people who binged it talked about it. Like, you couldn't, like, it was a really weird situation, but alas, they did not want people to review it. That is their prerogative. That's we're not entitled for anything. But I wish it were so that we could have a great Carlos review personally, because check out Carlos's work on agentsfandom.com because he's got some really great stuff up there. that'll do it for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. Not this week, I guess, just for this week's The Bear. We will, of course, have Love Island Wednesday, Comic Corner Thursday, and Ironheart on Friday. So we will see you then for all of those shows. Thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. On behalf of myself, Sean, and Carlos, we will see you next time. Peace.